You guys really love this segment, and I'll put a little bit more structure on it going forward. We'll always talk about stocks that catch my attention, but I'm going to expand it just a little more. We will talk about stocks to possibly buy. I'll show you one of the fastest moving industries in the program and what stock to consider. So every week, I find stocks that catch my interest, and this week, Salesforce was one of them. Salesforce price targets raised after a monster beat and raise. Shares up 15% pre-market. That was yesterday. All right, Canaccord Genuity raises Salesforce price target by $70 to $270, saying that there are a few better positioned to help with customer-facing efforts than Salesforce. Do we have Salesforce here? I think we do, don't we? Did we? Yeah, we do as part of our CRM in our product support department. That's a big beat on it. The firm notes CRM's valuation is comparatively attractive in an expensive space. So a lot of people have a lot of insight looking at Morgan Stanley, looking at Jefferies, have their insight on what they think is going on with Salesforce. We're going to use the VectorVest software to help us out with that. Another company that caught my attention, American Airlines. The pandemic is hurting these airlines. American Airlines set to cut 19,000 jobs when the federal aid expires in October. That's going to so suck. Well, we're trying to slowly but surely open up the country. More people are trying to fly. I've seen videos or pictures on Facebook that show full planes, some that show empty planes, but people are trying to fly, but not enough to sustain the industry or sustain the airlines. And with that, that's a lot of people going to be out of work, and they're going to be looking for what? Unemployment. All right, and the carrier expects its fourth quarter capacity to be half of the year-ago levels with travel demand still down. Airlines have pushed for an extension of the $25 billion in federal payroll aid to avoid furloughs. But man, American Airlines will have 40,000 fewer employees on October 1st. That is wow. All right, so let's go take a look at that company. How many of you got children or grandchildren? I'm really looking forward to this movie, the movie of Mulan. I've seen the cartoon, but the movie, the cinematic movie is coming out, and Apple, Google, and Roku join as distribution partners for Mulan. Now, something is missing. All right, Disney's, well, hold on. Where is my one that was, there we go. Notably absent from the usual streaming partners was Amazon. All right, that suggests that viewers will be able to use in-app purchases on those additional platforms without the complicated workaround through Disney+. All right, so I have Disney, I have Amazon, I don't have Roku. I do have Roku, and I've got Hulu. Damn, I got it all. And I still have cable. Even with all of that, I still got cable. All right, but that's big news. I'm wondering, because the movie houses, does that make me old because I say movie house? The movie houses are starting to open back up. But, if they did not, a lot of these movies that are set to come out were going straight to stream, and movie houses wasn't liking that too tough. But what else are you going to do? If you want to get the movie out and you want people to see it, you got to put it out. And I'm thinking that in order to get the movie, though, it's $30. I'd rather go to the movies and spend $15, but after you get the movie and you get popcorn and you get drink and all that, you're spending about $60. Maybe it's cheaper to just watch it at home on the stream. I don't know. But that's cool. That's big. So I will be looking at Roku. I will be looking at Apple. There's no way in the world I won't be looking at Apple. I got to look at Apple. And a couple of last things. Oil prices. I haven't had this as a story, but U.S. oil prices hold ground at the highest since March as Hurricane Laura curtails Gulf output. I've been watching the news about the Hurricane Laura, man. I'm praying for the people that are in the affected areas. That is a horrible hurricane that's coming through, but a lot of these oil companies are in the Gulf Coast, right? And oil is going to be affected. Now, this will do what? it will increase demand. If the output is being curtailed, it's going to increase the demand. So oil may be setting up as a buy, and it all depends on how much damage Laura does to the oil companies in this region. All right, so this could be setting up, it's a harsh thing to say that it's gonna increase on somebody's demise, on the bad stuff that's going on. But unfortunately, it's the reality of what's going on, and it could be setting up. And last but not least, we talked about, or we didn't, Zoom had some issues this week, right? Zoom says service restored after the U.S. users hit by a partial outage. You're thinking that with all of the kids going back to school, your kids doing Zoom, or they're doing something else? Yeah. Joey's got 40 kids, all right? And I know Shallon's going to watch this and be like, what? And he's got 3 kids, and they're all going to school by way of Zoom. My grandbabies are going to school by way of Zoom. And you think that when schools opened up, they were going to be prepared for it. But, man, that was a partial outage that affected that stock super duperly adversely. So that was a stock that made the news. Let's go take a look at these stocks. Let's open up the software. Salesforce was in there, Apple, Roku, American Airlines was in here, AAPL, oil was in here. And I'm going to bring up another stock. It's not in here. Just leave it alone the way it is. So here's my stocks. They're my stocks of interest. CRM, wow, way overvalued. That's Salesforce. Even though it had a nice earnings beat, way overvalued. Upside potential, be careful with it. Long term, I may not like it. But something tells me with relative safety at 1.48 that the stock most likely pays a dividend. And actually, it does not. It does not. So positive upbeat earnings probably has consistently met or exceeded its earnings expectations. Relative value upside potential not nearly as strong, but relative safety at 1.48 stock is relatively safe, and it's moving up in price right now, growing their earnings at a clip of 14% a year. Apple, wow. As much as I love Apple, the stock is grossly overvalued, all right? Now, another reason why I have Apple in the fray is because the split happens in a few days, on 4 days. On 8/31, the stock split. This is going to give a lot of people a lot more opportunity to buy into a stock like Apple. Upside potential is there at 1.17 on relative value, relative safety at 1.4. Good safe stock going up in price, growing their earnings at a clip of 13%. Roku, on the other hand, grossly overvalued, trading at 160, value of $12. Another thing about Roku, they have negative earnings growth rate. Roku is not a stock that I really like to buy, but on news-driven stuff like this, I may take a crack at it, but not a stock that I really would like to hold long-term. The fundamentals on the stock between relative value and relative safety are not there, but the news is driving the stock's price higher with a relative timing at 1.52. Negative earnings growth rate. Roku is not a great stock to take advantage of, even though it made the news. American Airlines, grossly overvalued, upside potential not there. 0.06 on relative value, 0.84 on relative safety, not a safe stock. 0.59 on relative timing, not going up. Negative earnings growth rate. The laying off of the people is probably trying to upgrade the bottom line, to try to keep them as far away in the red as possible. They don't want to be too far in the red. They're going to probably be in the red, but this is probably going to help to keep them outside of being fully born in the red. And my oil stock that I always look at is W&T Offshore. Right now, not a good time still. The only stock in my list that keeps bouncing between a hold and a sell. All right, so let's take a look at them on a stock graph. All right, CRM, good beat. All right, stock on the good beat. Look at the earnings. Where's my earnings? Why my earnings didn't pop up? Good beat on earnings. Beware of some profit taking. There's my earnings. Beware of profit taking. So I've got the note on here. And the stock pulled back just a little bit after the earnings play. Just be careful about that. It's going a little bit parabolic. Love the relative timing, pulling back today. The 3 and the 8 look good, and the 3 and the 8 look good going into the earnings play. Man, jumped up. If you were in it before the gap up, you're sitting pretty. Let's go to the next one. Apple I can't ever say anything pretty much bad about Apple. Look at the graph over the last 3 months. Definitely moving higher. Love Apple. Today is a down day. Probably wouldn't pull the trigger on it. Notice that the stock is moving sideways right now. RT is moving lower. That makes sense as the stock is moving sideways. But from price action, the 3 and the 8 still look good on the stock. Next one, Roku. The news comes out about the stream about Mulan. Look at the stock. All right, just look at the stock. And I want to look at earnings. Earnings is negative. The stock's moving sideways. I could play the bounces or retracements off support and resistance to try to make some money on it. This is more of a technical play than anything. All right, looking at the 3 and the 8, getting to that level of resistance, taking the trade off the table, playing it to the downside, bouncing off support, this is more of a technical play more so than anything else. Going up to American Airlines, the stock has just been in a big demise. I'm definitely bearish on AAPL right now, even though it's trying to do a little rebound. But the news on trying to cut all of the employees is going to try to keep it in the black more so than the red. WTI. Now, getting ready, keep your eye on oil. All right, if the output of oil in the Gulf gets shut down a little bit, oil may bounce off of this level of support. WTI may bounce off of $2.18. Look at right now, it's bearish. The 3 is below the 8. I'm looking at this level of 218. If this level can hold and the news comes out that Hurricane Laura has affected the oil output, I'm definitely looking to see if WTI can get above the value of $2.60. That would be a good early buy, still being able to buy low and sell high. All right, nice level of support. Let's see if it can break through. It could be setting up. I do like that it's approaching a level of support. Just get ready. Not ready to pull the trigger on it just quite yet.